Hello, my little gemstones, it's Afira, and today I'll be reading Self-Love Chapter 6 by Parallel Monsoon. Chapter 6, Janice. I know what you're doing. I'm not... The denial is pure reflex. Thomas isn't even sure of what it is that he hasn't done, only that he's adamant that he had nothing at all to do with it. Thank you very much. I was just... And then he sees the smirk. It's a tiny thing, caged tight at the corner of Janice's scaled lips, and once Thomas might have missed it entirely. Now he huffs a sigh, and the smirk widens enough to grow fangs. Ah. The lift of Janice's brow is so perfectly poised that Thomas refuses to believe he doesn't practice in front of a mirror. Then you didn't just finish eating dinner with Patton. Oh, that. Thomas shrugs in a you got me kind of way. Yeah. Janice hums. Yes. That. It's strange how the gloves make his finger quotes seem all the more mocking. In any case, I just dropped by. I called you, Thomas puts in, then jolts a little as he remembers why. I thought we could, to commend you on your rather novel approach to self-care. Okay, yeah. That stings, and Thomas knows full well it's only because it hits too close to home. I'm not spending time with Patton for me, he protests. For all of Janice's encouragement to be just a little more selfish, Thomas is painfully aware that when it comes to the sides, he's rarely been anything but. That's precisely what he's trying to change. Like his sides, Thomas is striving to do better. Janice tilts his head. Just so, the optimal angle for feigned concern. Then you don't enjoy your time together? He lays his hand on his chest with a gasp so melodramatic Roman would be impressed. Oh, poor Patton would be positively crushed! Thomas groans and drops his forehead down onto the kitchen table with a solid thud. Why are you like this? He asks against the wood of plea. Janice laughs outright. The bastard. Come now, I'm only teasing, he says. I find questions of motive to be rather dull. Thomas turns his neck without lifting his head to squint over him. He can already feel the threat of a headache throbbing at his temples. The end result is far more interesting, Janice continues, blithely ignoring the fact that Thomas has face-palmed himself into a migraine. In all sincerity, Thomas snorts, I do approve. Bonding with your own heart, a worthy endeavor. Thomas props himself up on his hand. It's been good, he admits. Pretty terrific, actually. He smiles against his palm, thinking of earlier that evening. Just scrambled eggs, but Thomas had tried to doctor it up a little. Scallions, some mushrooms, a sprinkle of cheese. Patton had been shell-shocked by his excellent taste. Janice smiles back. Another tiny, secret thing. And it looks ill-practiced, that smile. Looks real. And Thomas chooses to believe that it is. I'm glad, he says. There's nothing wrong with enjoying time with yourself, Thomas. And now they've come full circle. There's not, Thomas agrees. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm spending time with Patton. Janice waves a dismissive hand. As I said. He's not wrong. Thomas knows that. Not as one of Logan's dry facts, but as something fundamental. He knows it like he knows his body needs to breathe. He's them, or they're him, and it's never been we, only I. He's not wrong. Except that he is. Wrong like trying to breathe water, like trying to breathe sand. It scrapes and it cuts and Thomas has to cough it out, can't bear to let it stay. Patton isn't me. He shakes his head when Janice starts to reply, because that's also wrong, just in some entirely different, equally awful way. Patton isn't just me, he corrects. He's him, too. Utter nonsense. Perfect truth. Thomas feels it settle over him as a warm, satisfied glow. Well, Janice says, I suppose you would know better than I. Do try to get some sleep tonight, Thomas. He tips his hat and sinks out, leaving Thomas to blink at the empty space left behind. He glances over at the carefully curated stack of books at the center of the table. Dense, philosophical treatises, fantasies, alternate histories. He'd meant for Janice to pick one so they could discuss it later. A cozy little book club for two. Or is it one? Thomas lets his head slip off his hand and barely grunts at the impact with the table. Black or white? Thomas pauses. You do play chess, right? In retrospect, he probably should have checked on that before asking Logan to tutor him on the basics. On the other hand, in all fairness, it's Janice. Twisted chess master is his whole aesthetic. A game of strategy and tactics. Janice plucks the black pawn from Thomas's palm. Oh, I positively despise it. Thomas swivels the board and returns his white pawn to its starting place. Well, Try to go a little easy on me, he says. I'm still learning, but I thought we could make it interesting. Do tell. Janice's voice is mild, but the pupil of his snake eye constricts to a dark, narrow blade. Every piece I capture, I get to ask a question. Thomas levels a finger in warning, but you have to answer honestly. Deal. Janice offers a hand to seal it, and the ease of it all makes Thomas instantly suspicious. I expected more of a fight, he admits. Janice winks at him, and the audacity makes him groan. Sorry to disappoint, he says, and waves at the board in invitation. Thomas nudges a random piece forward. Janice takes his turn, and Thomas frowns. The black pawn is wide open, ripe for the taking. Thomas spends the next few moves actively avoiding that sacrificial pawn. He's not yet skilled enough to think 4 or 5 moves ahead, but he damn well knows a trap when he sees one. Until finally, Janice leaves his bishop open. Thomas can't resist. Janice folds his hands on the table and waits patiently to be interrogated. All innocence, and only Janice could make Thomas nervous by cooperating. Thomas picks up his list. Favorite color, favorite song, favorite old dead Greek dude. He skips over them for something less banal, because he has a strong suspicion he's only going to get a few chances. Are you cold-blooded? Shit, there was probably a better way to lead into that. You don't actually have to answer if it's like a sensitive subject or something, Thomas says. It's just, I keep the air conditioner on high and I wasn't sure. He bites off his ramblings when Janice clucks his tongue and bats his lashes. A proper Southern belle. Why, Thomas, are you concerned for my comforts? It would have been easy to dismiss it as just more teasing. The sarcasm is as thick as ever, a slow, muddy drip of almost friendly scorn. But there's something else under it, something that twangs like a wire, and the smirk that lives at the corner of Janice's mouth has flattened to press his lips thin. And then it's gone, if it was ever there at all, and Janice seems to shake himself. Adjusts capelet, hat, and gloves, and Thomas is proud of himself for knowing that it's a tell. Of what, precisely, he isn't sure. Janice finishes smoothing down his sleeves. To answer your question, he says, no, you do not need to adjust the air conditioner. Oh, good. Hold up. That wasn't my... Janice is already waggling a captured knight between his fingers. My turn, he says, and scoffs at Thomas's surprise. Quid pro quo, Thomas. Somehow it had never occurred to Thomas that his side might have questions of his own. He whines, just a little, because that hook of a smirk is back and he knows damn well he's in trouble. Janice drums his fingers against his lips. He looks like he's considering the choice, but there's no doubt in Thomas's mind that he's only drawing it out to make Thomas squirm. He doesn't even try to guess what's coming, and still, somehow the question catches him off guard. Why am I a snake, Thomas? Thomas makes a thick, garbled noise of despair and gestures helplessly at the board. I just wanted to play a game, man. Not delve deep into the metaphysics of the partially serpentine. Janice twirls his fingers, a gesture that somehow manages to combine get on with it and sucks to be you. I was a kid, Thomas snaps. It's not like I made a choice. That's not an answer, Janice says, mild as anything, and oh, fuck him. Serpents who did nothing but deflect had absolutely no right to throw scales. You know why. Humor me, Janice says. Venture a guess. It's not that Thomas doesn't know the answer. There's no mystery here. He doesn't at all resent the religion he was raised in, but having such stark proof of how it shaped him makes his belly twist uneasy. Sure, he has a choice now, but his framework, his scaffolding, was built by others. If Thomas's parents had been atheists, his sides would be very different people. Thomas would be a different person. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. There's something deeply uncomfortable and a little frightening in realizing that the you that you think you are is as much a product of chance as anything. Everyone has sides, Thomas thinks. Everyone is made up of everyone else. More nonsense. And this time the truth in it only makes him dizzy. The snake in the garden, Thomas says. You said it yourself, before. The snake who tempted Eve, Janice agrees. Tempted her with... Thomas pinches the bridge of his nose and gives serious consideration to just walking away. Except he can't, because Janice quite literally lives inside of his head, and there's no escape. What is the point of this? Humor me, Janice says again. Something in his tone makes Thomas look over. He half expects to find him gleeful, openly rejoicing at Thomas's dismay. Proof the snake has venom after all. But Janice's face is still. No over-the-top eye rolls, no carefully calculated lifts of the brow. He simply watches Thomas and waits. This is important to him, Thomas realizes. The irritation fades. It helps, knowing this isn't cruelty. And maybe this isn't how he wanted the night to go, but that doesn't mean progress isn't being made. Thomas knows he won't get an answer to the why of it, but he can make a choice. He can have faith and trust that whatever his methods, Janice's intentions are only to his benefit. Tempted her to sin, he says, and something like relief flashes in Janice's human eye when he realizes Thomas means to play along. Exactly that, Janice says. I must say, Thomas, for someone that makes their livelihood in the creative arts, you are a rather uninspired child. A serpent for a villain and a Disney prince for a hero. Hardly original, is it? Again, he's not wrong, but in being right, he's also being unfair. I was a kid, Thomas says again. He feels a swell of reluctant nostalgia for it, that certainty of childhood, when villains were only villains, not infuriating little shits who only want you to take better care of yourself. I'm sorry if... Janice is quick to shake his head. It is what it is. Would it do me any good to be angry? Maybe not, Thomas admits. But it's still okay if you are. The look Janice gives him is almost pleased, even a tiny bit smug, like Thomas is a favored student who just surprised his mentor. Thank you for the permission, he says, dry as anything. The smirk returns, becomes a grin that shows a bit of the bright pink jowl inside his serpent's cheek. In any case, I'm quite glad to be as devilishly handsome as I am. Thomas gives a surprised hard bark of a laugh, then sobers just as quickly. I know you aren't a villain. He tries to look earnest, wanting so badly for Janice to believe it. I don't see you as the snake anymore. Now Janice does roll his eyes, and the sass in it is truly impressive. Of course you do. He gestures to his face, flicks his tongue to show its curling length and forked tip. If you didn't, I would be different. We change when you do, Thomas. And again, not wrong. These days the changes were small. Princey's new uniform, Logan's new tie, but all the sides had looked very different when Thomas was a child. Virgil had been a lurking thing, a shadowy little twitch that stalked and murmured warnings. Patton had had Thomas's father's eyes and his mother's smile. They had only started to look more and more like Thomas as he grew and knew them as himself. But I really don't, Thomas protests. Janice flicks his tongue again, tastes the air, shakes his head. Lie. Okay, Thomas admits, both to Janice and himself. I don't think you're just the snake in the garden anymore. You do tempt me, and sometimes that can be a good thing. Perhaps it's not your view of me that's changed, Janice suggests. Perhaps it's your view of the snake. What did the snake do, Thomas? The snake tricked Eve. The snake tempted her to disobedience and watched as humanity was exiled from paradise. That's the story Thomas learned, his foundation. The snake offered knowledge, he says. And yes, he can see it clearly now, the pride in Janice's smile. But Thomas isn't done quite yet. The snake offered knowledge, he repeats, and then the snake paid the price for Eve's choice. Just as Janice had paid the price all these years, exiled and isolated when all he'd ever tried to do was make sure that when Thomas chose, he did so with his eyes wide open. Well, Janice is on his feet. Janice is looking anywhere but at Thomas, and Thomas can't help his grin. It feels damn good to see him flustered for a change. I think that's enough for today. He leans down to move his queen out to center. Checkmate in 10 moves, he says. You really should learn to plan ahead, Thomas. After he's gone, Thomas spends a long while staring at the board, testing moves and counter-moves, trying to play things out to their inevitable conclusion. Try as he might, he just can't see it. Thomas has a plan. He just needs to bait the trap, and he knows just the right temptation. So you'll join us? He asks. Casual. I know Patton is looking forward to it. There's no lie there. Patton had been more than down to build some bridges, and Thomas loved him for it. Janice hefts a sigh that sounds like he's emptying his lungs of every molecule of oxygen. Thomas cringes. Patton, and who else? Shit. I don't know what you mean. It's weak and wavering to even his own ears. Janice gives him a look of deep disappointment, so deep it borders on grief, as if knowing Thomas at all has driven him to bleak despair. If that's what you call acting, well, perhaps it's a good thing you didn't attend the callback. Ow. Dude, too far. Janice has the grace to look ever so slightly abashed. Thomas lets out a sigh of his own. He tries, but it just doesn't have the same flair. Virgil, he mumbles. No. It's not loud or vehement, but it plummets with all the flat finality of an anvil dropped from on high. Thomas sighs again, and this time manages a little more gusto. Please. He's never been above begging. I just want... He wants Virgil to feel safe. He wants Janice to believe he has a home. He wants there to be, if not trust, then tolerance. He wants to feel whole. "I'm sorry, Thomas," Janice says, not unkindly, "but just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's any of your business." Thomas tries to parse that out for all of 2 seconds before his brain blue screens with an almost audible screech. Janice has already sunken out most of the way by the time he manages to stop stammering. I kinda think it is," he calls after him. In response, a yellow-gloved hand rises back up and gives a jaunty wave before disappearing again. "Skilly asshole," Thomas mutters and starts setting out plates. Thomas holds up a hand as soon as Janice is fully manifested. "We're going to watch a movie," he says. "No existential crises, no trying to melt my brain. We're going to sit quietly, and we are going to bond, and so help me, you are going to like it." He points to the couch with a stern jab of his thumb. Janice meekly takes his seat, folding his hands on his lap like a cat who would never dream of getting into the cream. Thomas narrows his eyes. "Mulan okay?" A heroic liar willing to put her own life on the line? It had seemed like a safe enough bet. His mistake, of course, was making it a choice. "I prefer Frozen," Janice suggests, and Thomas chokes. Really?" Thomas likes the film well enough himself, but he'd figured Janice would enjoy something a little more sophisticated, or at least as sophisticated as Disney gets. All of Frozen's themes are right there on the surface. "I like the gloves," Janice says, and it's so deadpan that Thomas laughs until he wheezes. Janice pretends to be offended, but that hidden smirk is twitching, and there's a glinter in his green eye that Thomas has learned means mischief. "Fine," he capitulates, even though he knows it's risky. Giving in to Janice is always risky. Frozen it is. Sitting quietly quickly turns into inventing an elaborate inner life for Elsa's gloves. Lefty is a snob who may or may not have set into motion a series of events that led to the sinking of a certain ship. Rebecca, really, Thomas, is a salt-of-the-earth type who definitely plans to take over the world. This is actually working, Thomas thinks at one point, and if he preens a little, he figures he deserves it. "I always found it rather sad," Janice says after the credits roll. "One little mistake ruined everything." "You mean when Anna took Elsa's glove? Or when their parents made Elsa fear her powers?" Thomas pauses. "Actually, the whole plot is people making new mistakes when trying to fix old ones." Janice chuckles. "I think you'll find that's true to life. But I meant Hans. If he had just held it together 5 more minutes... Resist. Be strong. Don't... explain," Thomas grits out, and somehow he already regrets it. All Hans had to do was kiss Anna. It wouldn't have worked, of course, but he could scarcely be blamed if her love for him wasn't true. She would have died in his arms, as he claimed, and the kingdom would have prospered. Prospered under the reign of a murderer. In for a penny, in for a pound of Stanning the Tyrant. Trap set and sprung. Janice smiles like the snake who ate the cat, the cream, the canary, and a few dozen innocent mice. "You mean the man who held the kingdom together after both princesses abandoned it," he corrects. "The man who opened the palace and kept his citizens warm and fed during an eternal winter. The man who rode out to fight a powerful witch at great risk to his own life. Yes, that all sounds like a terrible king. 2 sheltered young girls would surely do much better." Thomas eyes the nearest throw pillow. As far as Thomas is aware, Janice doesn't yet know that he can touch the sides. Whacking him in the face with it would be a satisfying way to introduce the concept. "You're still ignoring the murderer part," Thomas points out, "and the fact that he manipulated Anna into thinking he loved her." Janice dismisses that with an airy little shrug. "Nobody's perfect." It is indeed tremendously satisfying. "Rude," Janice gripes after he's done sputtering. He retrieves his toppled bowler from the floor and makes a show of inspecting it for damage. "Do you want to keep admiring the conniving scumbag?" Thomas asks sweetly. Deceit looks between Thomas's face and the pillow still in his hands. "Perhaps you're right." Yeah, Thomas thought so. As I said, Hans did have one tragic flaw. He could have been remembered as the hero, but he cracked under the pressure of playing the part. You might even say... Janice leans back until he's pressed against the arm of the couch. Thomas readies himself. All he needed to do was conceal, don't feel. Thomas's swing just misses as Janice rolls off the couch and sinks straight down the floor in a startling display of sinuous grace. Still satisfying, though. It's not a bolt out of the blue, more of a slow, curdling realization. Thomas is eating a bowl of ramen when the last puzzle piece gently slots home. He's alone because that's important too. Sometimes he needs it, the silence and the space to simply be. He stares into the distance, tips his spoon, the noodles falling back into the too salty broth with a plop that splashes his shirt. Thomas doesn't notice. Son of a bitch, he mumbles as he starts to see the pattern. That slippery snake. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you like what you hear and you want to read more, you can find the link to the fic in the description. If you want to check out other podfics I've done, you can click the playlist of my videos linked on the screen. See you next time!